Hi, my name is Dr. Kelly Smith, and I am a director of health wellness prevention in the Douglas County School District. And I have been in education for over 30 years. I was a teacher for about a decade, and then I moved into administration, was an assistant principal, and now I work in the central office in student support services, supporting our MTSS implementation, our prevention when it comes to climate and culture, those systems, those things that really are foundational in our schools. So this is um, a series of modules that I've put together to really make the case and lay the foundation as to how schools should be setting up their system in their school to create a positive culture and climate so that all of our students can thrive academically, socially, emotionally, and behaviorally. And I call this adapting to thrive. So this is really making a case for shifting our school practices and then research-based um, strategies that we need to be doing in our schools so that students can thrive. So let's dig in. The outcomes for this course, I really want to talk about what's our current reality. What are we seeing in schools? What are we hearing in schools? What's on the media, on the news around education in America today? And one of the missing pieces that I feel that we haven't really focused in on a lot with our classroom teachers and our staff is around the brain development of our students. So I want to dig into that. And then these environmental influences that are affecting today's youth. And then the second half of this presentation is really around what do we do next? How do we support students and staff so that kids can learn and thrive at high levels? So our current reality. And again, this deck is available, and all the resources that I cite are at the end on the works cited page, and throughout the deck, there are links there so you can look at all of the studies that I talk about. So this first one is really around the educational landscape, and there is a lot of information out there. So I just tried to pick things that were the most pertinent to make the case for these foundational practices I'm going to talk about. So this was a study that was done of public school leaders, and they were asked which student behaviors were negatively impacting teacher and staff morale and student learning. And we've heard this: lack of attention, lack of focus, disruptive behavior, being physically and mentally unprepared for school. They can't engage in learning like in past generations. And then students that are really having trouble getting along with others and working in small groups. We think about burnout. I hear this a lot. Staff are burnout, teachers are burnout. You see it on the news, you see it on TikTok, you see it on Reels on Facebook. When you really dig into what the definition of burnout is, it really is a prolonged response to persistent work related stress, which is really in these three areas: overwhelming exhaustion, cynicism, detachment of what their purpose is around teaching, why they got into the profession. I often think about when I look at any reels on social media around um, counting down to the end of school, memes about student behavior, memes around how uh, teach memes around teachers and the woe is me. I'm in a very hard position. I'm not valued in my profession. When I see those, I think that people have lost their way. Teachers have lost their way. They're really, um, yes, it's a hard job, but it's also a calling, and people get into teaching because it is a calling. And if we're living in this consistent state of burnout, we've lost our calling. We've lost why we got into the profession. And burnout is being exacerbated by high workloads, conflicts at work, and then staff really feeling that they're ineffective. They don't have the efficacy to make a difference in their work for their kids. And it's causing this breakdown in well being for staff. Teacher burnout statistics are pretty high. When you think about this study, 55% of our teachers are going to leave the profession before they planned. And this was in 2022. Think about, is this better or worse now in what you're hearing? K 12 teachers were rated the most burnt out profession in the US. Um, 44% of teachers in K-12 often feel burnt out, and there's 500,000 fewer educators in American public school system after the pandemic. And we know this. If you're currently in the educational field, job postings are going unfilled and teachers are missing work. Staff are chronically absent because of their well-being. They're not well. They're physically not well because of this burnout statistic. Here's some other increases since the pandemic. All of these are about up 50%. Classroom disruptions are up, rowdiness outside the classroom, disrespect towards staff, and then students are distracted and using electronic devices more than ever before rather than engaging in learning. So let's talk a little bit about social media. We know that social media is everywhere. Um, Almost all teens in 2025 are using social media. 95% self-report that they use at least one platform, and a third of those kids use it almost constantly. And here's several links that you can dig into around tying it to negative mental health outcomes for our youth. This is the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that's given nationally by the CDC. And this particular manuscript was released in 2023, comparing trends for the last 10 years around nutrition, physical activity, and sleep in our youth. When they reported on nutrition, when you look at the bottom right-hand corner or with the stop sign and the greens and the yields, red means that this trend is in the downward trend, so it's not going in the right direction. Green means it's going in the right direction, and yellow means it has not changed. So fruits and vegetables, it's reported that students are not meeting those guidelines. Drinking water, and not drinking soda, that is going in the right direction. I personally believe that there's still more work to do with all the sugary caffeinated drinks. When you think about physical activity, this is alarming when I saw this. Every single category is going in the wrong direction. Students are not getting enough physical activity. They're not doing muscle strengthening activities, which is the skeletal system, making that stronger. Not engaged in much as in physical sports. And then the bottom line is if kids aren't getting enough sleep, it exacerbates every physical wellness attribute. So not getting that 8 hours of sleep a night. Sleep deprivation. This is the most sleep deprived generation ever. Nearly 80% of high school students are sleep deprived. We'll get into this later in the presentation about the impact on learning and sleep, but I want you to think about if you are in the classroom, if you are supporting students, or if you have your own kids, do your kids or do the kids in your classroom, is that a question we ask about what their sleep is if they're struggling in school behaviorally or academically? Caffeine, a large percentage of kids, we know this, consume caffeinated beverages regularly. Um, there are lots of reports of kids overdosing on caffeine, even dying from a caffeine overdose. And we'll dig into that a little bit more around why caffeine is so dangerous to young people. Alcohol, while alcohol consumption is on the decline, 90% of our underage alcohol consumption is with binge episodes. 8.6% of people ages 12 to 20 report binge drinking in 2023 over the last month. And when you're in the statistics world, when you ask folks about use and times that they do things, if they report that they've done it within the last 30 days, that really indicates that it's that they do it more than just once in a while, that within every 30 days, there are some incidences of that. And we'll talk about that further when it comes to brain development and um, wellness of students, why alcohol is so damaging to the developing brains of our youth. So this next section, I'm going to pause here to reflect on that. The next module, we're really going to dig into now what? Let's really dive into how our students' brains are developing, and then how these environmental influences are changing the way our kids' brains are developing.